All right, Yankees fans, buckle up because we've got a lot to break down today. There's been a lot of talk about what direction the Yankees might go this offseason. And one name that keeps popping up in the conversation is Kyle Tucker. Yeah, the same Kyle Tucker who's been putting up strong numbers for years now, even in what many are calling a down season for him. But let's take a closer look at what that really means, because when you actually dig into his performance, there's a lot more to the story than just a few rough months. Tucker's season was kind of a tale of two halves. The first few months, the guy looked like a legitimate MVP candidate. From April through June, he was locked in at the plate, driving the ball with authority, getting on base, and putting up the kind of numbers that make you think he's about to go off for a career year. In April, he hit just under 280, with 7 homers and 27 runs batted in. His OPS that month was a scorching 935. Then came May, and the production didn't slow down much. He hit 287, added another 5 home runs, and kept driving in runs with an OPS close to 900. June, even better. Over 300 batting average, 5 more homers, 13 RBI, and a ridiculous 982 OPS. Those are superstar numbers, no question about it. But then the calendar flipped to July, and everything started to dip. His batting average dropped to the low 200s, his power disappeared, and his OPS sank into the mid-600s. That's not the kind of production you expect from a player of Tucker's caliber. In August, he bounced back a bit, but even then his OPS was still hovering around the mid-700s, and the consistency just wasn't there. By the time September rolled around, he was battling an injury and barely on the field. He only appeared in 5 games that month, hitting well below 200 with just 1 home run. It's hard to produce when your body's not right, and it's pretty clear that something was off during that stretch. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you look at his home and away splits, it's almost like you're looking at 2 completely different players. At home in Wrigley Field, he hit in the low 200s with modest power numbers, 7 home runs, 26 RBI, and a mid-700s OPS. But on the road, that's where he turned into a monster. He hit close to 300, launched 15 home runs, and drove in nearly twice as many runs as he did at home. His OPS away from Wrigley was over 900. That's not a small difference. That's a full tier of production above what he did at home. So the question becomes, what kind of player would Kyle Tucker be if you were playing half his games in Yankee Stadium instead of Wrigley Field? Because if you've ever watched Tucker hit, you know where he likes to drive the ball, right field and right center. And there's probably not a ballpark in Major League Baseball that rewards that kind of hitter more than Yankee Stadium. With the short porch in right, those flyouts to deep right center suddenly start turning into home runs. That's why it's easy to imagine Tucker's home run total jumping from 22 to maybe 35 or even 40 if he were wearing pinstripes. The ballpark just fits his swing perfectly. And you don't even have to imagine too hard. Just look at what Cody Bellinger did when he came to the Bronx. In Chicago, Bellinger had that same kind of split where he was better on the road, but when he put on the Yankee uniform, something clicked at the stadium. His OPS at home was over 900, while on the road, it dropped into the low 700s. There's something about hitting in that park that brings out the best in certain left-handed hitters, and Tucker might be the next guy to benefit from that setup. Now, of course, this all sounds great in theory. Who wouldn't want a 35 to 40 home run bat in right field? But we got to talk about the cost. According to reports, Tucker could be looking for a deal worth around $427 million over 10 years. That's a massive contract, one that would make him one of the highest paid players in the game. If you're the Yankees, that's a serious commitment, and you'd have to be absolutely sure that you're getting a player who's going to stay healthy and productive deep into his 30s. That's where the debate really starts. Because on one hand, you've got Kyle Tucker, an elite offensive talent, still in his prime, a player who fits Yankee Stadium like a glove. On the other, you've got Cody Bellinger, who just had a strong year for the Yankees and would probably come at a much lower price and for fewer years. Bellinger hit 29 home runs and drove in 98 runs, which is about as close as you can get to a 3,100 season without actually hitting it. He was versatile defensively, solid in both corner outfield spots, and even capable of filling in at first base when needed. But there's also the reality that Bellinger isn't the same defensive player in center field that he used to be. The numbers show it, -3 defensive runs saved, and -1 in outs above average. Not awful, but not elite either. He's much stronger on the corners, and that creates a bit of a logjam because Aaron Judge is already holding down right field, and Giancarlo Stanton, for now, is still on the roster. The long-term plan might be to transition Judge into more of a designated hitter role to preserve his health, which could open the door for someone like Bellinger or Tucker to take over full-time and right. If that's the path, then the Yankees have to decide what kind of player they want to build around. Tucker is clearly the better offensive player. His OPS plus last season was in the 140s, well above league average, while Bellinger sat around 125. That's a noticeable gap, especially when you're talking about a lineup that's been inconsistent at times and in need of another high-level bat behind Judge and Soto. The appeal of adding a hitter like Tucker is obvious. He lengthens the lineup, gives you power to all fields, and brings a level of consistency that's hard to find. But is he worth $43 million a year? That's the tricky part. Maybe if the Yankees could stretch the contract to 12 years instead of 10, bringing the annual value down to around $35 million, it becomes more manageable. Still a ton of money, but slightly easier to fit within the payroll. And let's be honest, the Yankees can afford it if they really want to. The question is whether they see Tucker as that kind of transformative piece or if they'd rather spread the money around to address multiple needs. Personally, I think Tucker fits New York perfectly. His swing is built for the stadium, his approach at the plate is mature, and he's shown he can produce at an elite level even when he's not completely healthy. Plus, he's still young enough that you're not just paying for past performance. You're investing in what should be his prime years. If you were to join this roster, you're talking about a lineup that could feature Judge, Soto, Tucker, and Bellinger. That's the kind of firepower that brings the Yankees back to being the most feared offense in baseball. Of course, that might be a dream scenario, but hey, this is the Yankees we're talking about. They've never been shy about spending when it comes to building a championship roster. Tucker's not just another name. He's a game changer, the type of player who could thrive under the bright lights of New York. The numbers, the fit, the potential, it all makes sense. The only question now is how far the front office is willing to go to make it happen. Now, when you really dig into what Kyle Tucker could bring to the Yankees, it's not just about the raw numbers. It's about timing, park fit, and the way he approaches each at-bat. What stands out is how he performs on the road versus at home. In Chicago, Wrigley Field can be a tricky place for left-handed hitters, especially one who likes to pull the ball to right field. That's where Tucker struggled a bit, and it's evident in the split numbers. But strip away the environment, put him in a stadium like Yankee Stadium, and suddenly you're looking at a player whose swing is optimized for the dimensions and the wind patterns there. That kind of park-adjusted upside is the sort of edge the Yankees look for, because every run matters, and adding a bat that can consistently put balls in the seats in critical moments changes the dynamic of a lineup. Think about it. Tucker's approach is already refined. He's selective, aggressive in the right counts, and has power that translates across the field. He's not just swinging for the fences. He's situationally aware, knows when to drive the ball, and when to make contact for a base hit. That balance is critical for a lineup that already features heavy hitters like Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, because it means defenses can't just pitch around one guy. Tucker can keep pitchers honest, forcing them to throw strikes, and that opens up opportunities for the rest of the lineup. When you combine that with his ability to hit for average on the road, you're talking about a player who can change the complexion of a season not just in terms of home runs, but with on-base percentage and situational hitting that drives in key runs. Another factor that makes Tucker appealing is versatility. While he's naturally an outfielder, he can play across all three positions. Right field seems like a natural fit in New York given the current roster composition, but he's capable of handling left or even center field if necessary. That flexibility is huge when you're trying to balance the playing time of stars like Judge and Bellinger while also keeping your defense strong. Injuries happen over a long season, and having a player who can slot into multiple spots without a significant drop in defensive value is a luxury that few teams get to enjoy. Defensively, Tucker is solid, not necessarily elite, but reliable. He reads the ball off the bat well, has a strong arm, and moves smoothly in the outfield. Compared to someone like Bellinger, whose value is tied heavily to corner outfield positions, Tucker offers more of a natural balance across the entire outfield. In center, he might not be a Gold Glove candidate, but he's competent enough to hold his own while providing the bat that could push the team over the top in tight games. And in left or right, he could be an above-average defender, helping to balance the field while giving you the power you need to complement Judge and Soto. Financially, the conversation gets tricky. A 10-year, $427 million deal is massive, and it's not just the numbers on paper. It's about long-term flexibility. But if structured properly, there are ways to make it manageable. Stretching the contract to 12 years, for example, brings the annual value down significantly while still locking in a prime offensive weapon for the majority of his peak years. And let's be honest, for a franchise like the Yankees, committing to a player who can potentially hit 35 or 40 home runs a year while maintaining a high OPS is not an unreasonable gamble. You're not just buying a season or two. You're buying the prime of a hitter who can consistently change games, especially in clutch situations and postseason play. Now, compare that scenario to Cody Bellinger. He's an excellent player, no question, and last season proved that he can produce at a high level for the Yankees. But the ceiling for Bellinger might be slightly lower than Tucker's, particularly in terms of long-term offensive upside. Bellinger's value in the corners is significant, and he brings a lot defensively. But when you're building a team that wants to contend year after year, sometimes the edge comes from a player who can maximize offensive production without a massive defensive downgrade. Tucker fits that mold perfectly. He's not just about flash numbers. He's consistent, he's capable of performing in high-leverage situations, and he has the kind of bat that can intimidate opposing pitchers. From a strategic perspective, adding Tucker also gives the Yankees options. If Judge eventually moves to designated hitter, you're not left scrambling for a replacement in right field. Tucker could step in immediately, providing that consistent power threat and allowing the team to maintain defensive integrity. And the beauty of it is, he's the kind of player who doesn't need to be coddled. He knows the game, he knows how to handle pressure, and he has the mental approach to thrive in a market like New York, where every swing is under the microscope. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. Whispers from the baseball world have sent shockwaves through New York this week, as whispers suggest that Derek Jeter, the legendary Yankees captain, may not be entirely in love with the team he once led to glory. Sources close to the situation hint at comments made by Jeter that could be interpreted as critical of the franchise, sparking a flurry of speculation among fans, analysts, and rival teams alike. Though details remain murky, the buzz centers on remarks that some insiders say hinted at frustration with management decisions and the direction of the team. For a figure so closely associated with the Yankees' storied history, even a hint of disapproval is enough to ignite headlines. Pundits are already debating whether this is a temporary lapse in public diplomacy or a deeper dissatisfaction that has been simmering beneath the surface. Social media, of course, has exploded. Fans dissected every word of interviews and offhand comments, with some interpreting a particular phrase as a subtle jab at ownership or team strategy. The rumor mill is running at full speed, with some suggesting that Jeter's statements could even influence player morale or future trades. While there is no confirmation from Jeter himself or the Yankees organization, the mere possibility has generated a ripple of intrigue and controversy that seems destined to linger. Interestingly, this isn't the first time whispers of internal dissent have surfaced around the Yankees, but the involvement of a figure of Jeter's stature elevates the story to a new level. Analysts are speculating on what, if any, consequences could follow. Could this spur changes at the front office? Could younger players feel emboldened to speak out? Or is this simply the result of the media reading between the lines too eagerly? For now, fans are left to wonder whether this is a fleeting remark blown out of proportion or the beginning of a more profound narrative about Jeter's evolving relationship with the team. One thing is certain. When a name Derek Jeter is involved, even a whisper of criticism is enough to turn the sports world upside down. The Yankees may have to brace themselves for a storm of questions, theories, and endless speculation in the days ahead. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.